It's Christmas morning for all Denzel Curry fans because he just dropped his new studio album, Melt My Eyes, See Your Future. And this is one of the most anticipated albums in the whole industry because you know when Denz drops, it's always quality. And today, guys, we are going to be doing a mega breakdown of Melt My Eyes, See Your Future. The full review happening right here, right now. And we're going to do this in a super cool way because we have categories that we're going to be going through. So artist performance throughout the album, content, features, production, instant replay value, and then an overall rating at the end of this episode. But we actually review things differently here. So we don't use a numerical system. We use words that we attribute to the album. So we start off at bad, then we go on to mid, we go good, great, amazing, and then perfect. But Lou, let's go into the Patreon community score because this is something new in our reviews that we're implementing.
Yeah, so we actually did a live stream for our first reaction to Denzel Curry's Melt My Eyes, See Your Future with our entire community on Patreon, and it was so awesome to go through this journey with Denzel. And by the end of it, we asked the community how they felt about the album, and I'll read you through the actual votes for what the community score is. So 34% voted perfect, 56% voted amazing, 10% voted great/good, and 0% voted mid/bad. So if you guys want to have your say in the community rating and get to experience albums with us every week, make sure to check out the link in our description and also in the pinned comment, because these first listening experiences are so awesome to experience with the whole community, because it's very entertaining to go through an album with a whole community and a whole club. So that was awesome. But let's now go into this review because there's so much to break down here, bro.
There's a lot to break down. But let's start off with the artist performance. And by the way, guys, follow along with our ratings. Let us know how you feel about certain things in the comment section. But starting off with artist performance, I understood that this was going to be a much different approach than Taboo, but I didn't expect to see this much of an evolution in Denzel's writing game, and how he was able to come through here and pour in so much emotion and beautiful soul in through this album. And the one contrast I think that you're going to see off the bat within the artist performance, from Taboo to this, is how meditative his flows are and how, let's say, aware he is of his surroundings, because there's an underlying concept throughout the whole album, which we'll get to, in the content section, but the way that he executed it was really well done. Not only that, but you're getting some of my favorite hooks, from Denzel of all time. Example on songs like, let's say, I believe it was
Worst Comes to Worst.
Worst Comes to Worst was fantastic. I also had, I believe it was the hook on, let me pull this up, on The Last as well. Walkin was fantastic. He really elevated in that section. So what was the number one strength that you witnessed throughout, Denzel's artist performance, and how did it affect your listening experience?
For me, it was definitely just how musically in tune Denzel was with the music as well, because when you're looking at a lot of these songs, you get a lot of soul samples, and what's cool is that Denzel shows more of his melodic side, because what he'll often do is he'll harmonize to the melodies that are being displayed within those vocal samples, and it just shows that he kind of becomes one with the composition. So that was really cool to see how in tune and connected he was with the music and soundscape. Apart from that, like you said, I like the fact that he traded in the hyperactive flows that we usually, think of Denzel for these more meditative and calculated rhyme patterns, and that really complemented the mellow tone of the album. So I thought that was a great choice. And apart from that, when you're looking at the wordplay and the double entendres that Denzel has here, for example, Run the Jewels because I kill a mic on any LP, Denzel is continuously showing us that he's mastering his skills as an MC, and it was beautiful to see just how he executed on the hooks, how he executed on these songs where one time it's just one full blown out verse. I just think that the song structure was really solid, and apart from that, just the way that he actually crafted this album and sequenced it was really well done. And that track run from number 1 to number 6, starting off with Melt Session number 1, moving into Mental, that's one of the best 6-track runs I've heard in years, to be honest with you,
absolutely. And I think that he also does such a great job at keeping you intrigued throughout the whole track list because, in specific, you're going to see more of those meditative flows, on example, on a song like Mental or, Melt Session 1, Angels, The Ills. This is where, he's kind of taking you into his environment and making you understand his headspace. And I think that's what he does best throughout the album is he allows you to feel so much of what he's feeling, in current time. And he also does it in a way where he's experimenting with certain new flows. So example, like I believe it was on the song, it was on John Wayne, where he was experimenting with this new slurred and sort of, I would say more, not Isaiah Rashad like flow, but something that was not as clear cut as the other meditative flows that you got, but it also created for a nice break in performance throughout the track list. And
Any flaws in this category?
do I see any flaws? I do. So example, one of the hooks, I believe it was on X-Wing, if I'm not mistaken. I was not too big of a fan of that hook. I think that the auto-tune was a bit off, and it's not what I like Denzel for, but I could still get over it. And when you're also looking at his rapping performances, so example, like that full verse that he ended up doing on Melt Sessions 1, or like the second verse on Walking, like these are legendary verses that are, being delivered on this new album that, might not even be prominent on, let's say, Taboo. Like this is some of his best writing yet. And I think that, yes, there obviously are some blemishes in certain areas, but for the most part, it was super well calculated.
Yeah, absolutely. And I agree with you on the X-Wing thing, because you see that he's kind of overextending his melodies the same way that Baby Keem would do, and it kind of resembled too much to Keem's cadence. So that was one minor flaw that I had with it. Apart from that, I just feel like Denzel really had a tight grip on his rhythmic capabilities, and it kind of reminded you of this soulful golden age of hip-hop that you would have heard on, a Native Tongue album, for example. So I love what he brought in terms of the streams of consciousness. And apart from that, I don't think that there really is too many flaws with this at all. I also liked what he did on the last, where he comes in with this original accent and cadence. That was really refreshing, and that's what you could expect Denzel is to embody the cadence that he's tackling on every single song. And again, the structure, you could argue that it kind of shifts once you get the song Troubles with T-Pain and you get Ain't No Way and another song that follows it. You can argue that kind of plays with the linear progression of the album a little bit, but
X-Wing was
it was a good tonal shift, to be honest.
Absolutely. I think it was needed, because if you would have followed up, let's say, Mental with Angels right away, it may have been maybe too brash of, let's say, a decision, and like it would have been too much of like, okay, I'm getting too much of the same sounds here. So I think it was a nice break. Plus, Denzel Curry only had this for a runtime of like 45 minutes. So the fact that it was also so short and concise and so much was packed into it was a great performance on his part. But overall, I think the rating for the artist performance is amazing. This was fantastic on his part. He did not miss anywhere.
Absolutely.
But let's go into a very important, I would say, category for a Denzel album, and that's content, because he said that he wanted to bring his writing back on this album. And I think you hear it right away, because this is a lot more tight-knit. It's a lot more focused than what you would get on an album like, let's say, Zoo or Unlocked. And it's super prominent, and you're understanding the themes of the album straight off of that first listen, but you need more context of the overall layer of the theme with the more listens that you got in. So what I found, at least while going through the content, especially with, the other listens that I got in, is like, he is not stopping, and he is relentless in proving to you that, his mindset has improved over the years. And what I also enjoy is that he's super raw and genuine and vulnerable, but that was also prominent on Taboo, but he attacked it with a lot more violence back then and a lot more brash energy, whereas if with this, again, it was a lot more calculated, it was a lot more peaceful, it was a lot more introspective. He was playing on a spiritual plane that, a lot of rappers are not able to execute on in their writing. So what was your biggest standout, let's say, throughout the content?
I think it was definitely just a concept, because it feels like Denzel is taking you through this journey where the main mission is to redefine himself. And I feel like the big focus of this album is focusing on the future rather than the past. And with the whole concept of Melt My Eyes, See Your Future, it's really Denzel wanting to erase the former perceptions that he had of himself and that other people have of him, to redefine himself and really kind of change his outlook on life, be more spiritual in his approach. And you get that from the beginning. From Melt Session number 1, he lays it all out on the table and is super transparent about his flaws. He takes accountability for the way that he's treated people in his life, saying that he's objectified women, also talking about dark thoughts that he had where he's come close to suicide. It was so real and raw to have him go that introspective and that in depth on his repressed feelings that early on in the album. And I just love the fact that this album is not only about Denzel. Yes, it's a personal album, but it's an album for everybody, because the subject matter is so relatable as he just goes through having conflicting thoughts and wanting to create a space for change. And I think that's what he really accomplishes here more than anything else. And to me, the standout song in terms of the content matter There's so many, bro. I mean, John Wayne is crazy, talking about how he's witnessing people getting killed for going on a jog. You know, mentioning the situations that have been going on in terms of police brutality. Like when you're looking at his social commentary, it's really elevated, and it's the most maybe important and powerful album in terms of the content matter that I've heard all year.
Oh, absolutely. Even on a song like The Last, where he's talking about, the George Floyd protests in the summer of 2020 and, uses like this super retrospective verse to be able to describe how he feels towards it is super nice too, because, Denzel has always been someone to talk about political corruption and understanding certain things that are going in within, our society. And the way that he laid it down was beautiful. I also love the ills because that's when he takes you through, his experience through therapy and like how he was not necessarily comfortable with talking about it at first and going through that, but it was his girl that actually, helped him go through that. And that's what he was talking about too in an interview. And also John Wayne was cool because the concept of the song is like, yes, it's super political, but John Wayne is a famous Hollywood actor that used to play in a bunch of Westerns. And like, he's like, things are getting so bad that, when I'm walking through my neighborhood, I have to keep myself strapped like John Wayne and, walk through that whole sort of, I would say that old Western sort of feel. And that's what I also get through this is like, you feel as if he's taking you through this personal journey of his growth and experiences, because on a song like Walkin', it's all about character progression within that song. Like it's him, picking himself up and getting through this sort of mode where, he's realizing all these stress and anxieties that are coming towards him, and he understands how bad his mental health is, but he keeps on walking and he keeps on fighting. And I think that's a beautiful message to have.
It's a universal theme, is what it is.
Not only that, but this feels like a huge spiritual awakening for Denzel, and it's prominent throughout all of the album. And, there's not a single bar on this album or a single line where you have to double take it and be like, oh, that was whack. Even the writing was flawless throughout it, and the way that he was setting up all of his rhyme structures were super unique in contrast to Taboo. Like everything felt upgraded when it came to the content, and it plays on a similar level for me as far as Taboo goes.
Absolutely. So I think for that reason, we're going to give the content an amazing rating. There were no blemishes, and I feel like Denzel really rejuvenated his soul on this album, and the writing is so cathartic, and it probably is the most mature writing that you'll get out of Denzel's entire catalog. But let's now go into the features, because this is a big talking point, especially track number 8, where you had a huge cypher. You had like 5 featured artists. So in total, we had about 10 or 11 features. And right off the bat, I want to say this. I feel like the features that have more of a minimal effort on the songs, for example, Bridget Perez on Mental, and other artists like Saul Williams that provided the spoken word that was so powerful, talking about how gun violence and just crime has become the soundtrack and inspiration to music. That was beautiful. So I think that there is more of a purpose within the more minimal efforts where artists are kind of taking over the hooks rather than having, I would say verses like Rico Nasty's, which didn't really fit too much on a song like Ain't No Way in terms of the overall mood. So right off the bat, what's your favorite feature on this?
Oh, well, I'd probably have to say Bridget Perez on Mental.
Yeah.
Like that chorus is absolutely beautiful. But another one that's super underrated for me would probably have to be Slow Thai on Zaytoki. I know I've probably butchered that song name 1,000 times. I'm sorry. But that was fantastic because I love the rush tempo of the production. I feel as if Slow Thai's like brash energy and super quick energy really complements that well. J.I.D had a great verse, but again, I wish it was longer. But Black's chorus on Ain't No Way is a big standout for me. And I mean, listen, I like T-Pain on Troubles, and T-Pain has had an influence on Denzel Curry's career, and he's talking about it on several different occasions. But do I think the T-Pain feature was needed? It's up for debate for me. I still think it was good, but
it fit for that song. It definitely fit.
It fit for that
I think,
song.
if anything, it's a bigger question if Troubles was needed on the track list, because for that song in and of itself, it's more of a pick-me-up. It's a celebratory feel, and T-Pain's auto-tune is sounding as great as ever. And yeah, I thought that he really fit on that track. In terms of who didn't fit, I would go back to Rico Nasty on Ain't No Way, because there's a very kind of smooth and soft approach through Denzel and Jid's verses, and then you have Rico Nasty with a super raw delivery, and you're left wondering, like, this really does not complement the rest of the track. And same thing.
But I still think it was a great verse, though.
It was a good verse. It just didn't fit the vibe and tempo of the song.
That's true. Like, I would have maybe preferred if Black or, just Jid and Denzel were on there. But I was interested in the Rico Nasty feature because I wanted to see how she was going to complement, the sound of the album because, she's very, extravagant as far as her flows and deliveries go. She's very, like, in your face, and it's very, it's mosh type of deliveries. And I don't know if that complemented it in a way, and I could have been like, okay, maybe not needed on this. But overall, what are you saying about the features, man? How did you like it, and what's your overall rating for this?
Yeah, I enjoyed them. I think that some of them weren't totally necessary just because Denzel is an all-around rapper and artist that can take hooks on his own like he's shown on this album, and that doesn't really need that much assistance, even though a lot of the features were really well complementary to the project. So overall, I'm going to say that they were great. I think some of them weren't necessarily needed, but nonetheless, a lot of quality performances out of them.
Oh, sure. Absolutely. I got to agree with you on that one. But let's go on to a major category for this album. That's the production, because this soundscape is very fucking unique. Like, the production on this album is different. And you have a cast of producers that, just offer a different array of sounds, but yet it feels all cohesive. And this soundscape feels very psychedelic at times. Then you're getting, certain jazz elements and tones within the end of the track list, and then you're getting some new productions that Denzel's never tackled. So as a Denzel fan, because I know you've been really writing out this career with him and you've been there since the jump, like, do you feel as if, in contrast to other studio albums of his, that this production has elevated? And did you enjoy the new tempo switch in the production choices?
This is definitely Denzel Curry's best soundscape out of any project he's ever put out. I think it's undeniable, and it's also the widest sonic palette that Denzel has approached, because you're getting sounds of neo soul, you're getting a lot of jazzy instrumentals with flourishes of piano keys and trombones at times, and so many live instruments which really play well. Apart from that, I just love the fact that Taboo kind of felt like a nightmare. You had more eerie production, and this feels like a daydream. And what's interesting is that I feel like throughout this whole project, Denzel is working towards rejuvenation. He's working towards getting to a therapeutic place where he's happy with everything going on in his life. And I feel like he expressed that through the types of beats that he chose, because they're very sunny, they're very euphoric, and I feel like it really complemented the type of state of mind that he wants to live in. So I like that. And when you're looking at what Robert Glasper provided here, when you're looking at what JPEG Mafia did on, I believe it was John Wayne, you have samples of trumpets, you have him bringing in experimental sounds like the fucking Discord, the Discord ping notification. You know what I mean? Like,
even the Smell of Death with Thundercat, that was incredible.
Nice bass line there.
The bass line was gorgeous, and I love that too as an interlude because it was a good connecting sector. And I also love the sequencing on this album, because if you go to Melt Session number 1 and you see the transition into Walkin, we did that yesterday in the Patreon live stream, and we were blown away just of how good the drum patterns were meshed in together, where it almost feels as if it's one song.
And that happens like for almost track to track.
Absolutely. Like, this album almost feels as one complete song, which is super unique too, because there's not a production that is similar to each other, and you're also going to have trap drums on songs like, let's say, like X-Wing. Like, that was interesting too, to see how he was going to be able to ride those types of productions. So overall, what do you think about the soundscape, and how do you think it complemented your listening experience?
It was great also, just because you had so many different producers contributing to this. You had Cardo, you had Robert Glasper, you had Thundercat, JPEG Mafia, and yet the album still ended up sounding super cohesive, and it has this really mellow and laid-back tone. Like I said, it feels dreamy, and at the end of the day, I think that there was a nice tonal shift starting off with Troubles, where you got an increase in tempo. That was really cool, and I was just blown away by how atmospheric it all was. And I think that we have to give it an amazing rating, because there wasn't a single beat that threw me off.
Oh, absolutely.
At all.
No. It was
just a really nice, chill mood.
Amazing production. And let us know how you guys feel about the production in the comment section.
Did you like? Sorry, I was going to say, did you like the Star Wars sample on X-Wing?
I didn't even pick up on it. Did you pick up on it?
Yeah, it's like an orchestral Star Wars theme song that was placed in there.
I actually didn't pick up on that. But guys, what I was saying is, let me know in the comment section, what is your favorite production on the album? But let's go into instant replay value. And this is an important category for us because, especially as Denzel Curry fans, we've had projects like Imperial, and Taboo stick through our rotation for nearly half a decade now. And I'm still listening to those projects. I'm still gaining insight out of those projects. And I think nothing has changed here with Melt My Eyez See Your Future. There is so much complicated lyricism and writing that I have to go through again and really analyze on a different level, because what Denzel Curry accomplished here is this beautiful, short, concise album that fits in so much raw emotion and genuine feeling. And that's something that I wanted out of Denzel too, because I have gotten, so many different cuts from Denzel Curry where, he's going into like the metal scene, or where he's, really brash with you. I've also gotten the slappers. I've gotten all of that. This was completely different, and this is really exclusive to his catalog as well, because you've never, seen him touch this sonic palette. You've never seen him experiment with these types of meditative flows. You're getting some of his best material in years in songs like, Walking or Melt Session Number 1. Like there's some serious fucking material on this album. So how do you feel about it, and how do you see this sticking throughout your rotation?
This is going to be one of my most played albums of the entire year. I don't even care what the fuck else drops. I know this is going to make probably my top 5 albums of the year by the end of 2022. And I think that when it comes to Denzel's writing on here, that's what's going to be, keep me returning to the project, just because you have some of his most ambitious stanzas ever. And what's cool about Denzel's writing, which we've seen throughout his career, is that he's often very ambiguous with his lyrics, and they're often left open to interpretation. For example, on the outro, The Ills, he raps, "My mind is a playing field for mental arguments. My thoughts are sane. My emotions is who started it." So there's so many different ways to kind of analyze and take in the wisdom that, Denzel is sharing. So for that reason, the lines will have me going back. And apart from that, it's just how cohesive it is as a listen. The fact that you have these track-to-track transitions really make it one smooth listen. And it does not reduce it to a playlist feeling album, which is a problem that we're having with a lot of new rap albums, where you're just plucking out tracks. With Melt My Eyez See Your Future, that's not the case. It feels like a very complete album, and everything feels tightly knit together. And for that reason, we got to give the replay value a perfect rating. I think that, we could easily place a bet right now that this is going to be one of our most listened to albums of the whole fucking year.
Dude, I've maybe played Melt Sessions Number 1 like at minimum 15 times this morning. I swear to God, it's one of my favorite tracks that have come out this year. And I have so many standouts too. Like, as you were mentioning at the beginning of this review, that 1 to 6 run is insanely impressive. And it was just cool to see how he was able to, fit so much in 45 minutes. It's only 14 tracks too. Like, the track list isn't bloated. And I think that when you look at the cohesiveness of everything, you're going to get a lot of different sounds that you're going to want to go back to and you're going to want to analyze. But all right, that's that. Let's go into the overall thoughts. So I think that when you're looking at this album, you're going to be gaining so much value out of just your first listen, and it's going to want you going back for more and more and more to be able to gain more introspection through Denzel's writing. And I love how this was a completely different switch than the last Ritini album he had with Taboo, because this feels a lot lighter. It feels a lot more psychedelic and meditative to a certain extent. And as I was mentioning, Denzel is in this state of consciousness where he's observing his past self, but now he's transitioning into his new self. And not only do you see that within the writing, but you see that within his artistry and the way that he's delivering this album. And that's what I find super fucking amazing. And even on a level of, let's say, looking at the way that, he put this album together, like, it was genius, because you have this underlying concept that's just getting proven with each and every single verse that he's delivering. And I think the features do a great job at coming in here and complimenting him. I think the soundscape that he provided was immaculate, and you have some of the most unique producers in the industry like JPEG Mafia working on this, but then you get a production like Cardo's, or let's say, something like Robert Glaslow. So it's all over the place, but yet it feels so tight-knit as a focused project. And listen, I think that's why we're going to have to give this project an amazing rating. Like, it was such a great listen, an amazing listen. And overall, man, like, I want to go back and listen to this album right now. Like, I want to stop this review and just go back to the album.
It's definitely a fucking amazing album, guys. And to be honest with you, starting off with track 1 to track 6, I'm like, this might be a perfect album. Like, that was just perfection, master at his work for those first 6 songs. And there isn't any misses. There's no skips on this track list, which is super rewarding for the listener. And not only that, but I just feel like this was Denzel's journey as a samurai, kind of just driving towards self-growth and also embarking on a journey to help others. I feel like Denzel, for the first time in his career, realizes the influence he has and realizes that he can take shape as a leader with the platform that he has and really offer solutions for a lot of people. And not only that, but I think that it works really well as a concept record because he's leading the blind. There's so many people that aren't privy to what's going on around them and aren't looking, but I would say beyond the surface level. So what Denzel offers here is a lot of reoccurring motifs as well, because if you look at the whole metaphor of walking, I mean, yes, it means, going on a journey, but it also represents the more meditative and calculated thing, because when you're walking, you're slowly going down a path, and it's kind of symbolizing progression and forward movement, which allows Denzel to really analyze and overlook everything around him. And I thought that was really cool because the album does feel like Denzel is always in constant motion and movement. And apart from that, like you said, the production is immaculate all throughout. And I just love the way that Denzel always channels his emotions through his music. On Taboo, you saw him do it through this chaotic energy where it feels more like an anarchy. But with Melt My Eyes, See Your Future, it kind of feels more healthy. Like he's channeling them to grow as an individual. And that's what I got the most out of this. So at the end of the day, what I'm left with is realizing that once again, Denzel proved that he is one of the most diverse artists in hip hop and in music, and this album will not disappoint you guys. So like we said earlier, let us know down in the comments how you would rate this album. And just to remind you guys, if you want to watch our full uncut album reaction to Melt My Eyes, See Your Future, check out the link in our description or the pinned comment, because we're doing these every week. Every week there's a new album that drops. We go in with our community and bump them for the first time. It's always an awesome experience. Thank you guys so much for coming into this review, and we'll catch you in the next one.